Hey everybody, it's time to swing. We're still swinging, and I'm your host, Thomas. And today, family, we got my boy Damion World Hardy up. All right, Damion World Hardy is a gangster from Brooklyn, New York. He is from the Lafayette Gardens projects in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn. All right, Damion World Hardy and had some run-ins with some famous dudes, who might have been in the streets. You know what I'm saying? And he was having some problems with some of the guys in the industry due to problems he was having with his girl, who was Lil Kim at the time. So listen, this guy stamped, sealed, and approved, and right now he's serving 6 life sentences in the federal penitentiary. So without further ado, family, let's get into it. Damion World Hardy.
How old are you?
29.
And where are you originally from?
Brooklyn.
You got a lot of stories that kind of ride with the legend of World. Most of the ones that I've heard aren't so nice. They don't paint you as such a nice man.
Well, that's just people trying to discredit me.
Yeah.
Because they know what's got to happen.
How do you make your money? Any money? By muscling people?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't muscle people. Music, I used to dibble and dabble into certain things, but
block
music,
hugger.
No,
okay.
Never a block hugger. But music.
And okay, somewhere in the middle of Funk's Twitter rant, Lil Kim found herself thrown into it when the DJ decided to bring up past beef between the two. Beef that, according to Kim, was already resolved as it happened nearly 2 decades ago. Now, according to Funk, Lil Kim's ex-fiance, Damion World Hardy, tried to come for him around the same time frame as Tupac's final days. And Flex says it was all because Kim put him up to it. He tweeted, "Lil Kim tried to put World on me too. I didn't forget." Kim wrote, "This is so funny to me because I'm the only one who was able to keep him off you, even though he felt he was in the right. But you were the big homie and he was my man. He did what he was supposed to do, and I stand behind Brooklyn 100%.
Nah, Kim is a very good person.
How did you meet her?
Me and Kim was in first grade together. Went to school together. We would grow up together from kids.
Tell me about your brother. At one point, he was dating Kim. Tell me the story
My
of who.
brother.
It was your blood brother.
Yeah, my blood brother.
Was dating Kim.
Yeah.
Okay, I did have that story right.
You got it correct.
And he was killed?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
In 99.
How did it happen?
Yeah, shot.
You say that and toss your hand like it happens every day.
We all from the street. Like, it's not like we not new to something like that.
Yeah.
The streets swallowed them up. Allah called them back. That's the best way I could say that.
Is he your younger brother?
No, how many
Was he? You're the youngest. So I'm picturing in my mind that Kim comes to you for consoling, and you fall in bed together?
Nah, that's not how it happened.
How did it happen? World is here, everybody.
Me and Kim, all good comes from Allah. Me and Kim, we seen each other, me and Kim we always had a thing for each other. So that was that. But I don't really want to
What was that stuff that was printed in the paper?
About what? With me and Loose Change?
Yes. What is loose change?
50 cents.
50 cents.
2 quarters.
I just want to be sure.
$2.
What was that printed in the paper? And I want to get into that. You went to
it was lies.
He was up there on Flex's show, and he was doing a freestyle and said some disparaging things about your then girlfriend, Lil Kim.
Right.
I happened to hear that. I was on my way to a party and, heard it all go down. You were downstairs waiting for her to finish the interview, or you raced there as soon as you got a phone call? No, excuse me. He was upstairs freestyling. He said some disparaging things about Kim.
Mm-hmm.
You met 50 and his crew downstairs.
Right.
And
No.
Okay.
Hold up.
Tell me how it went down.
No. First of all, I don't know what happened with Duke that night.
Okay.
He, you know what he do. He's working with them people. So, they have people in high places.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was shook. I don't know what happened to him that night.
Okay.
But he threw my name all up in the mix. And it was him that did that. It was him that put my name all up in the mix.
And then there was a shooting going on in Jersey City at one of the hotels. Do you know anything about that shooting?
No. I mean, I don't play games.
Yeah.
I am not with the game plan.
How do you think about what people in the hood think about your reputation?
I'm loved in the hood.
But feared?
People fear. Everybody want to do wrong and live good. Everybody want to do bad and live good. I'm not into that.
Yo, we back. It's Shades Pop a Lot. Mob Gang. We on our way to NYC with it. Headshot City. Brooklyn to be exact. Meet us in Bed-Stuy, LG, Lafayette Gardens if you're not hip. Now today we are going to be talking about one of the most infamous, one of the most notorious, and if I had to say so myself, I would say one of the most feared people to come out of the borough. And the person I'm talking about is going to be a guy by the name of Damion World Hardy. But you really can't talk about him without talking about his partner in crime or his co-D, eBay, or Aaron Granton. And we also have to mention his late brother, Myron Wise Hardy, who along with his brother, World, would go on to form the organization titled CMB, or Cash Money Brothers, a name that was actually the name of a drug dealing organization and a very popular movie at around the same time when authorities alleged that they set up this gang. And that movie being New Jack City, starring Wesley Snipes, Alan Payne, Mario Van Peebles, and Ice-T, which is a street classic. If y'all ain't see it, y'all go check that out. But the gangsters in this movie are going to be a lot more deadly than the gangsters that you might see in that movie. And according to the federal government, the CMB was pretty much an organization that was set up by Wise and World, like I said earlier, to take over everyday drug sales in the Lafayette Gardens projects in Brooklyn. They would go on to do just that and much more. Now, the authorities would say that the CMB wrestled and maintained control of Lafayette Gardens through the acts of violence that would include near daily gun battles with rival organizations. Based on my research, everything would get real crazy right in 1998 when they say that World would order one of the underlings from the CMB to kill a guy by the name of Michael Cologne because World had believed that Cologne disrespected him in some kind of altercation that they would have at a roller skating rink. Now, with all my research, I couldn't find any kind of penalty that he was handed associated with that crime. But the very next year, in 1999, while he was incarcerated, his brother and co-leader of the CMB gang that they had started would be shot and killed in Lafayette Gardens. Now, by the sounds of it, he was already in the streets and getting his hands dirty. But depending on who you ask, it would be the murder of his brother that would really turn him into a savage. Now, when the information about Wise's murder would get back to World, it would put him smack dab in the middle of a war with another drug dealer from Lafayette Gardens by the name of Ivory Peanut Harris. Not sure if he knew at the time or even cared when you listen to him or when you read about him, but the war with Ivory Peanut Harris will also put him in a war with one of Brooklyn's beloved sons and a world boxing champion. Now, according to the federal government, it would be Ivory Peanut Davis's nephew, Ramil Davis, that would shoot Myron Wise Hardy over a turf dispute in Lafayette Gardens. Now, it wouldn't be long after the death of World's brother Wise on June 15th, 1999, when the gang would hone in on their first target for retaliation for Wise's murder. And it would be a guy by the name of Gerard Kojak Mackins, who they had deemed responsible for supplying Ramel Davis with the gun used to kill Myron Wise Hardy. A guy by the name of Dwayne Myers would go on to open up on him point blank range in the vestibule of 456 Lafayette Street in Lafayette Gardens. It would be almost a year later on June 10th, 2000, where the hit that would get them the most kickback would take place. And that's where they would go on to target a guy by the name of Daryl Hamo Bomb. Now, according to federal authorities, they're going to say Daryl Hamo Bomb was targeted because of his close association with Ivory Peanut Davis. And that's when the gentleman that I mentioned earlier, Aaron Granton or Eric Moore or eBay would come into play because according to federal authorities, he was the one that would go on to hit Hamo on the corner of Quincy Street and Marcy Avenue directly after fleeing to a getaway car. Now, it looks like the gang took the month of July off in the year of 2000, but they would strike again on August 1st in 2000 when authorities allege eBay, on the orders of World Hardy, would go on to hit a guy by the name of James J.R. Hamilton inside of a seafood restaurant that he had owned on 102 Saratoga Avenue in Brooklyn. And it would be 10 days after that slide on August 10th, 2000, when they would catch up with their prize target, Ivory Peanut Davis. Now, according to information, they're going to say Ivory Davis was hit twice in the back as he sat in a parked car in the front of Club NV, a nightclub that was located on the corner of Spring Street and Hudson Street in Manhattan. Now, after being hit, Davis would speed away but lose control of his vehicle and end up hitting an innocent pedestrian who was actually a Swedish director, a guy by the name of Johan Kamitz, who would go on to die from his injuries after being struck by the Range Rover that was driven by Ivory Peanut Davis. Now, that summer of 2000 would make things hot for the gang because, according to the New York Post, after hearing about who was responsible for the death of his best friend, Daryl Hamo Bomb, they're going to say that Mike Tyson would go on to put a hit on Damion World Hardy for a 50-piece. And according to the Post, when word got back to Damion World Hardy about the contract that the champ had put on his head, he would go on to put his own $50,000 on the head of Iron Mike Tyson. So if he wasn't brazen, I don't know who was. Now, some people are going to say it's talk. Some people are going to say it's cap. While giving evidence at his trial at Brooklyn Federal Court, a guy by the name of Alan Boo Bryant and another gentleman by the name of Shelby Moo Henderson would say that they were against whacking Mike Tyson, even though he had that alleged $50,000 bounty on World's head. Now, Moo would go on to say that Mike Tyson was a Muslim and that they shouldn't kill a Muslim. World would go on to say that's not a reason not to hit him, also saying that he was a Muslim and that Tyson put money up on him, essentially saying that him being a Muslim didn't matter. Now, Alan Boo Bryant would continue testifying, saying that it didn't matter. If World would have called us, we would have did it. It would also be the New York Post that would go on to report that in 2005, after an on-air appearance, a member of 50 Cent's entourage would go on to shoot at a person that they named as Lil Kim's bodyguard, but who essentially was her lover, her fiance, Damion World Hardy, as he would rush to the studio after hearing 50 Cent saying disparaging things about Lil Kim on air during a Funkmaster Flex interview, leading me to tie in to the beef with Funkmaster Flex that World would have after Lil Kim explained the close relationship she had with Funkmaster Flex and him allowing 50 Cent to go on air and disrespect her. I'm sure World didn't take light to that. Essentially, like, Funkmaster Flex wasn't doing the shooting, but he let 50 Cent do the drive-by in his car. So World wanted to see about that. But it would be a year before that where the government would essentially say that the gang would commit their last slide, which would be the hit on Tyrone Bomb, the brother of Daryl Hamo Bomb, who the gang believed had been seeking to avenge the death of Hamo. They would end up catching up with him near a construction site in Brooklyn, essentially hitting him 3 times. So though small, this is going to be one of the most dangerous crews or groups to come out of Brooklyn, essentially started by the two brothers, Myron Wise Hardy and Damion World Hardy. Now, in 2015, the government would essentially go on to sentence and convict Damion World Hardy as well as Aaron eBay Granton to life for the reign of terror and the 6 murders that they associated with the Cash Money brothers. Now, I wanted to make sure I touched back on this piece. I did a small piece on this earlier. Y'all make sure y'all follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, POP_A.
Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. Shout out everybody. Look, if you ain't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And look, right now we headed to check out eBay. Now, eBay is one of Damion World Hardy's main henchmen.
With, at times, a very violent community.
Every nation needs escape from respectability, from the world of what we have to do into the world of what we would like to do, from the world of duty that endureth forever into the world of joy that is permitted for a moment. Perhaps Coney Island is the most human thing that God ever made, or permitted the devil to make.
I'm absolutely sure that when people think about the Coney Island section of Brooklyn, New York, they think about this.
That's right, the Nathan of Nathan's Famous. A Polish-Jewish immigrant, Nathan started a humble hot dog stand right here on Coney Island back in 1916. Synonymous with American culture, at the cookout, the baseball game, and of course, that 4th of July tradition, the Nathan's hot dog eating contest.
But after spending most of my early childhood life there, I know it's more like this.
In Brooklyn, a 17-year-old stabbed in the neck by the Coney Island boardwalk. This unfolded around 8:30 tonight near the entrance to Luna Park.
6:41 and new this morning, at least one person killed in a triple shooting in Coney Island. Police found the victims on 16th Street near Hart Place at around 2 this morning. The OMPD says a 25-year-old man was shot in the chest and died. 2 other men.
Police say 2 people were fatally shot in Coney Island just before 10 Tuesday night. Officers responded to a 911 call on West 19th Street in Brooklyn. They found a 27-year-old man shot in the body, and a 38-year-old man shot in the head. Both were taken to Coney Island Hospital, where they were pronounced dead. Police do not have anyone in custody. This is an ongoing investigation.
After September, labor is gone. You know, everything shuts down.
The wintertime Coney Island is designated.
Coney Island isn't just the amusement park. It isn't just the Cyclone and the Wonder Wheel. Those things are great. But you know, we're on the boardwalk right now, and all over there you have 50 to 60,000 people who really kind of live in silence, and other than 3 months a year aren't even thought about.
People do got the misconception that Coney Island is just this big amusement park.
When tourists come to Coney Island, they don't go past the rides.
Once you cross that train, that's Stillwell Avenue, once you cross Cropsey's Bridge, like, it's just a whole different world.
Y'all ever heard the saying, killers respect killers? Now, today I'm going to tell y'all the story of a shooter that will come from Brooklyn's most forgotten hood and will go on to put in work for 2 of New York City's most notorious gangsters. And during the process, he will go on to take the life of some of the most feared people walking the city at that time. Now, the person that I'm speaking of is going to be a guy by the name of Aaron eBay Granton. Now, some might have seen his name documented as Eric Moore, but no matter what you call him, he's going to be a live wire. Hey, I'm back in the city on street business. It's Shay's Popular. Salute the almighty mob. Now, back in 2013, eBay would go on to tell Don Diva how he grew up in Coney Island on West 23rd, which was one of the roughest blocks in the entire Coney Island, explaining even further that when he was young, there was a lot of gangs out there fighting, stabbing each other up, doing everything to claim their territory. There are a lot of different projects, so when it goes down for real. You got to be on point at all times. And it's with that foundation that eBay will go on to be one of the most feared killers in the city that killed some of the most feared killers in the city. And with me spending time on that very same block in Cary Gardens at 2947 West 23rd Street, Building 2, I don't remember it exactly the same way he does, but he ain't too far off. Now, if it's one thing that I want to say that everybody that's from Coney Island or spent significant time in Coney Island knows, that it's one way in and it's one way out. Now, I don't know if it's that, the residents, or the fact that this section of Brooklyn seems like it's shut down for 70% of the year. But that shit makes it a dangerous place. And just like eBay explained, that shit is scattered with projects. And I just remember that shit as a kid. Shit like Grazing, C-Rise, 2007, OT, the White Building, the Pink Building, Surfside Gardens. And for a section of Brooklyn that didn't seem big at all, it seemed like the further you got away from the amusement and the fun of the rides, the deeper you would get into these projects. eBay would make it out that jungle and would go on to be connected to two of New York's most dangerous crews, working his way up to lieutenant/enforcer for the infamous CMB gang, or the Cash Money Brothers, that was headed by Damion World Hardy and his now deceased brother, Myron World Hardy, whose death he was said to avenge by murdering Ivory Peanut Davis, as well as Daryl Hamo Bomb, with both of those deaths occurring in the year 2000. Through a prison stint, he would be connected to a Supreme Team affiliate and a close friend to the leader of the organization, Kenneth Supreme McGriff, a guy by the name of Emmanuel Dog Mosley. After some high-profile friends of Supreme, Ja Rule and Irv Gotti, will find themselves in a situation. The government would allege that Supreme would task Emmanuel Mosley with handling that situation. In turn, Emmanuel Mosley would go on to enlist the services of Aaron eBay Granton, who in the year of 2001 would go on to take the life of notorious Queens gangster Troy Big Nose Troy Singleton. And by the time 2007 would roll around, eBay would find himself with a reputation as one of the city's most feared killers, while being connected to two of the most gruesome RICO cases to come out of the city, starting with the government claiming that Damion World Hardy was the leader of a violent gang of drug traffickers who called themselves the Cash Money Brothers, saying that Aaron eBay Granton worked his way up the ranks of CMB to become lieutenant, enforcer, and hitman. The gang's indictment would allege that the group would control the Lafayette Gardens housing projects in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn for over a decade, going on to essentially claim the housing projects as their turf by threatening and even killing others who attempted to sell drugs there. The indictment would allege, and the jury would eventually find, that the CMB operated a RICO enterprise between 1991 and August of 2004. And if receiving a life sentence plus on that case wasn't bad enough, just a few years later, in 2007, he would be connected to the infamous trial of Kenneth Supreme McGriff, who would be charged with ordering the murders of Eric E. Moneybag Smith, along with Troy Big Nose Troy Singleton. And just like in the RICO case of the CMB or the Cash Money Brothers, where former associates would end up cooperating with the government, fingering Aaron eBay Granton and Damion World Hardy as the heads of the organization, the man that would connect eBay to the Supreme Team case, Emmanuel Dog Mosley, would go on to testify against him, explaining how he would pay eBay to murder Big Nose Troy outside of a sports bar in Jamaica, Queens in 2001. The CMB's RICO case would have 6 murders tied to it, with the government claiming that Aaron eBay Granton was the perpetrator in half of those. And in 2015, he would get the same sentence as the alleged leader of the organization, Damion World Hardy, when they were both given 6 life sentences. Now, y'all make sure y'all hit the red bell.
Shout out the Popular Mob Ties. Shout out the Mob Ties. Fair use, family, and we keeping it busting.
Development in the late 1980s. Hardy recreated the organized drug distribution system put in place by the Hamiltons. Hardy was exceptionally shrewd, was an excellent negotiator and, even at the age of 15 years old, earned the respect of older drug dealers in the neighborhood. He began selling drugs on his own and asked his longtime friend, cooperating defendant Alan Bryant, to join the winning team, meaning selling drugs with Hardy. The partnership flourished, and Hardy and Bryant were joined by Myron Hardy and certain boyhood friends. The group called itself the Cash Money Brothers, CMB, from the popular film New Jack City, which portrayed New York City drug dealers in a housing project. Robert Footman, also known as Trouble, moved to Lafayette Gardens from Coney Island, Brooklyn, with his family. During Footman's first few days at Lafayette Gardens, CMB member James Sessoms, also known as Popsy, recruited Footman to sell drugs with the CMB. From the outset, Hardy was the gang's leader, but when he was incarcerated, his brother Myron took control. Damion Hardy had the final say as to who could join CMB, and if a problem arose with anyone outside the gang, then everyone in CMB would become involved in the dispute. As the leader, Hardy had connections for obtaining guns and drugs. He obtained cocaine from the Harlem neighborhood of Manhattan, brought it back to Lafayette Gardens, and produced crack cocaine in the apartment in which Hardy's mother left the teenagers to live. Under Hardy's leadership, the gang's drug dealing was structured. Street-level drug sellers worked in 8-hour shifts in a section of Lafayette Gardens known as the Strip. The CMB maintained apartments for making and packaging the crack cocaine for retail sales. Lieutenants gave packages of drugs to the street sellers and collected money from them. The lieutenants gave street sellers packages, called bombs of 100 crack vials that sold for $3 each. The flow of customers was nearly constant, and it took only 20 to 30 minutes to sell 100 vials. At times traffic was so intense that a worker would sell a bomb in the time it took to walk through the lobby of one of the apartment buildings in Lafayette Gardens, right after being resupplied. Street-level dealers sold 8 to 10 bombs per day, containing a total of over 30 grams of cocaine base. Of the $300 in sales from each bomb, certain workers were paid $20, while the lieutenant would collect the rest and give it to Hardy. Other workers were paid a weekly salary of $150, regardless of the quantity of drugs they sold. The gang's business was lucrative. Hardy told Bryant not to worry about losing $30,000. Hardy had a safe containing $10,000 to $20,000 in cash. After collecting the money in an apartment on one end of Lafayette Gardens, which in the beginning of the gang's operations totaled as much as $8,000 to $10,000 per day, CMB members delivered the money to Hardy in Hardy's apartment. As a show of strength to establish that the development was our turf, 6 armed CMB members accompanied the person carrying the money. To maintain control in the drug trade, Hardy also ordered violence against rival drug crews that occupied the neighborhoods immediately surrounding Lafayette Gardens. During the disputes, Hardy decided who the CMB would attempt to shoot, supplied the firearms for gang members to use, and determined when the feud had ended. An early situation took place on December 22, 1992. Hardy's direction, Granton shot and killed Hamilton crew associate Troy Davis, aka Crazy Troy, at a public telephone across the street from Lafayette Gardens. Troy Davis worked for the Hamilton organization as an enforcer and heroin dealer. One such rival drug organization, led by Sumter, RAB, controlled an area a block away from Lafayette Gardens on Grand Avenue in Brooklyn, the Grand Avenue Crew. Hardy suspected that Sumter was supporting armed conflict in Lafayette Gardens to draw police to the area and prevent the CMB from operating its drug business. After a fistfight failed to resolve the conflict, the CMB and Sumter's crew went to war. In approximately 1993, Hardy declared war on another group based on Bedford Avenue, the Bedford Avenue Crew, which consisted of one Sherrod and others, and ordered CMB members to shoot Bedford Avenue Crew associates on sight. Also, during the early 90s, the CMB had a violent feud with a crew operating around Marcy Avenue, which included Chaka and others, known as the Razor Crew. The rivalry flared when a member of the Razor Crew shot at Hardy. During these disputes, the CMB normally had to stop or drastically reduce its drug-selling operation because the street dealers, who stood outside, were vulnerable to being shot. In approximately 1993, Hardy ordered the murder of Teresa Gregory, who had testified against CMB member Fridquin Bailey, who was then convicted of murdering Lashin Johnson. After the trial, on April 27, 1994, Gregory was visiting her mother in Lafayette Gardens with her newborn. Hardy saw her and instructed Bryant to have a lower-level CMB member, Dante, shoot Gregory to show her that she couldn't get away with what she did, meaning testify against a member of CMB. Bryant gave Dante one of the gang's guns and instructed him to shoot Gregory. Dante shot her in the buttocks. On July 5, 1995, Hardy telephoned a CMB member's fiancée, Sheena Carter, who had agreed to testify in a murder trial against him. Hardy drove Carter to a hotel and threatened, "If you get on the stand and testify, bitch, I will shoot you in your head." Hardy was arrested for threatening Carter and pled guilty to felony witness tampering in a New York state court. For example, on September 8, 1995, acting on Hardy's orders, Robert Footman shot and rendered paralyzed Marcel Kennedy, also known as Munchie, because he was telling the CMB street sellers to stop dealing drugs in Lafayette Gardens. Footman shot Kennedy, paralyzing his lower body. On or about April 14, 1998, Hardy ordered a Bloods member to murder Michael Cohen, a security guard at the Rollerdome roller skating rink in Brooklyn after Hardy was refused entry for failure to produce proper identification. After being thrown out, one of the security guards heard Hardy state, "I'm coming back." Primarily, CMB chose to engage in violence for two reasons. First, to maintain the power and control of their drug enterprise in the Brooklyn neighborhood and beyond, as discussed above. And second, to avenge the murder of Damion Hardy's older brother Myron. On June 12, 1999, while Damion Hardy was incarcerated, his brother Myron Hardy was murdered in broad daylight in Lafayette Gardens. After Myron Hardy's murder, Hardy appointed CMB member Edward Taz Cook to run the drug distribution in Lafayette Gardens. He also ordered CMB members to investigate and ensure revenge for Myron Hardy's death. Under orders from Hardy, various CMB members, including top hitman Aaron eBay Granton, hitman Dwayne Myers, aka Thor, and Boo Bryant, continued their control of the drug dealing in Lafayette Gardens and each participated in acts to avenge Myron Hardy's death. Days after Myron Hardy's murder, Myers shot Gerard Mackins, also known as Kojak, to prove his loyalty to CMB. The murder eased the suspicion of CMB members that Myers had been involved in Myron Hardy's death. While still in prison, Hardy ordered the murders of Ivory Davis because Davis's cousin, Ramel Davis, aka Nino, had killed Myron Hardy. Ivory Davis, also known as Peanut, had grown up in Lafayette Gardens and was friends with some of CMB's members, having committed crimes, including robbery and drug dealing, with them as teenagers. Hardy held Ivory Davis responsible for Myron's death because of Ivory Davis's familial relationship with Nino, reasoning that, if Ivory Davis didn't stop it, he was a part of it. Hardy was adamant that Ivory Davis had to be killed, and CMB engaged in a campaign to hunt down and kill Davis. After Hardy returned home from prison, he created a list of additional targets, which included Daryl Baum, James Hamilton and Troy Davis. Allegedly, Baum is the same person who shot rapper 50 Cent 9 times. In one of his songs, he said "Homo shot me." 3 weeks later he got shot down. Hardy believed that Daryl Baum, also known as Homicide and Homo, should be the first killed because of his close relationship with Davis and his reputation as muscle. None of the other members were as wild as Baum, so he had to go first. Prior to the time Hardy returned from prison, there was some dissent within the group about killing Baum and other fellow Muslims. CMB member Chris Crandall, Shelby Henderson and CMB associate Abdul Aziz urged Cook to slow it down by taking the dispute to the mosque rather than by killing him. However, at some point after Hardy was released from prison, the defendant came to terms with murdering Baum despite the fact that Baum was a fellow Muslim. Allegedly, Baum had been extorting from other Muslims. That was a no-no, and that's why he was killed. On June 10, 2000, shortly after midnight, Granton shot Daryl Baum in the head while Baum was standing in the street speaking with friends. The defendant, who had connections in the Hamilton gang, passed important information to the CMB about what the Hamilton gang suspected about the murder. Crandall informed Hardy, Myers, Granton and other CMB members that a Hamilton family associate known as Blacko Macko believed that the CMB was responsible for Baum's murder. He also informed the CMB that Mike Tyson and Muhammad Nur, close associates of Daryl Baum, had contributed $50,000 for the murders of Hardy and Cook in retaliation for the murder. Baum had been released from prison 6 months earlier, on December 31st, after serving 13 years, and quickly established a business relationship with Ivory Davis. After the Baum murder, Cook
Keep in mind, family, Daryl Hamill Bonds, he went to prison with a 2-year sentence and stayed there for 13 years.
Became concerned for the safety of his girlfriend, Kim Underwood. CMB associates including Henderson and Az's helped Cook move Underwood out of her home to another location, so the Hamilton gang could not easily find her. Hardy also ordered the murder of James Hamilton because of suspicions that Hamilton had helped Nino hide after he had killed Myron Hardy and because of his association with Ivory Davis. He was also the financially backing for the rival gang, so killing him was essential. On August 1, 2000, Granton and Aziz shot Hamilton multiple times while Hamilton was sitting inside a restaurant he owned. Crandall waited for the men to complete the murder and then drove them away from the scene. Immediately after the shooting, Crandall met with Hardy, Cook, Henderson, Aziz, and Myers at a diner where they discussed the murder. Hamilton died 11 days after the shooting from 3 gunshot wounds. On the morning of August 10, 2000, Granton shot Ivory Davis twice in the back as Davis sat in the driver's seat of his running sport utility vehicle parked in front of a Manhattan nightclub. According to a report, the incident started about 4 a.m. in front of Club Envy, a bar and lounge at 289 Spring Street, in an industrial area on the western fringes of Soho. The driver of the Range Rover, Ivory Davis, 27, was double parked outside the club when a gunman shot him about 4 times. Mr. Davis, who was hit twice and started bleeding heavily, sped east along Spring Street, losing control at the Avenue of the Americas, where his sport utility vehicle struck the director, Joan Kamitz, 38, who was preparing to cross the street. The Range Rover then crashed into a 30-foot traffic pole, knocking it down, tore into the patio of the Aqua Grill restaurant, and knocked down several planters before flipping onto its side. Mr. Davis died at the scene. He had been on his way home from a night out with friends, eating Japanese food and bar hopping in Soho. This was not the first shooting in which Ivory had been involved. Earlier that year, in February, he was shot while inside or near the Tunnel Club. He had been arrested 6 times and was awaiting a sentence for an assault conviction. He was paroled in 1995 after serving 1 to 3 years for attempted second-degree robbery, state records show. That club has been a problem since the day it opened, sources said. Mr. Cantor said that the tape showed the gunman coming around the corner from Hudson Street and that he was wearing a baseball cap, which is not allowed under dress code. In addition, Granton also participated in the 2001 contract murder of Troy Singleton. Through his work with CMB, Granton had earned a reputation as an effective and ruthless killer. He was recruited by a separate gang, known as the Supreme Team, to kill Singleton, who was then shot multiple times in the back and head as he left a nightclub in Queens, New York. In 2001 or 2002, CMB member Tion Weller asked CMB members James Sessoms and Alan Bryant, aka Boo, to work with him in Utica, New York selling crack cocaine. Weller recruited Sessoms with the knowledge and consent of Hardy. When Jamar Cooks and another individual, who were workers for Sessoms and Weller in Utica, could not account for all of the drugs they were given to sell, Sessoms helped them commit a string of armed robberies to make up for the lost money. Around these times, 3 cooperating witnesses testified about the attempted robbery and kidnapping of a drug dealer named Ashabuddin Shakur on July 11 and 12 of 2002. The cooperating witnesses' testimony was corroborated by Sessoms' post-arrest statement, law enforcement and civilian witnesses and telephone records of co-conspirators. On the night of the intended robbery, Lesian Campbell guided a group of CMB members and associates, including Sessoms, Ken Wayne Jones, Tion Weller, Alan Bryant and Jamar Cooks to Shakur's house in College Point, Queens. The conspirators traveled in a van and another vehicle. When they arrived at Shakur's house, they observed Shakur leaving in a taxi. The conspirators followed him to a strip club. Weller entered the club and struck up a conversation with Shakur, which led to Shakur's offering to sell Weller drugs. As Shakur left the club to arrange the sale, Cooks, at Sessoms' direction, confronted him at gunpoint and directed him to get into the van. The conspirators covered Shakur's eyes and bound his hands and legs with duct tape, punched him in the head and threatened to cut off his fingers. Sessoms held an AK-47 assault rifle to the victim's head. They drove Shakur back to his house, but Shakur told them that he kept his money and drugs at his sister's house. The group then drove to Shakur's sister's house, but decided against trying to enter after Shakur claimed that his sister was a cop. Instead, they took Shakur to an apartment in Brooklyn and left him under the guard of Cooks, who was armed with an AK-47 rifle which was given to him by Sessoms. Eventually, Cooks fell asleep and Shakur attempted to take the gun from him. A struggle ensued, and Cooks, assisted by a neighbor who was acquainted with Weller, was able to subdue Shakur. However, a short time later, the police arrived and arrested Cooks and freed Shakur. Damion Hardy was nearby and in contact with the group. In addition to dealing drugs, Sessoms took an active part of the gang's violent activities. In the early 1990s, Sessoms took part in CMB's violent drug war against a rival gang known as the Deuces. Sessoms also used violence to police CMB's control over their drug turf. On July 25, 2003, Tyrone T. Rockbaum was gunned down in broad daylight while he was working on a construction site on a public street in Brooklyn. Tyrone Baum was Daryl Baum's brother, and he was incarcerated at the time Daryl Baum was murdered by the CMB. Crandall informed CMB members, Hardy, Cook, Bryant, Granton, and Myers, that Tyrone Baum was scheduled to be released from prison and was planning to avenge his brother's death by killing Hardy and Cook. The Crandall stated that the CMB better not play any games with this particular guy, because he was a wild person, and he was someone that we definitely needed to deal with, because he was going to come home and try to avenge his brother's death. After listening to the Crandall, Hardy decided that Tyrone Baum had to be killed. On July 25, 2003, Crandall helped Cook and Myers identify and locate Tyrone Baum to murder him. After Crandall confirmed Baum's identity, Myers informed Hardy of the development and assured him that they would kill Baum. Hardy then ordered Bryant to go to the scene to serve as the hitman. The plan was for Crandall to act as the getaway driver for Bryant after the shooting. Telephone records for the time period immediately before and after the murder show multiple phone calls between Crandall, Cook, Myers, and Hardy. The phone activity is entirely consistent with the cooperator's testimony and is powerful corroboration. Crandall drove around the neighborhood in his minivan looking for Tyrone Baum, with Bryant in the front passenger seat and Henderson in the rear seat. After they observed Baum working at a construction site, they stopped to discuss how they would set up the hit. Bryant and Crandall instructed Henderson to get out of the car because they did not want him there as a witness. Bryant then exited Crandall's van and Crandall drove around the corner to wait for Bryant. Bryant shot Baum 3 times in the head. He then got into Crandall's van, and the 2 men drove away from the scene. After 4 weeks of testimony and 2 days of deliberations, the jury returned its verdict. The jury convicted Hardy and Granton of a slew of charges, including racketeering, racketeering conspiracy, murder, murder conspiracy.
There's only one God, and Muhammad's blessings and peace be upon him as his prophet. I dedicate this fight to my brother, Daryl Baum, who died. I'll be there to see you. I love you with all my heart. God, amen. What?
Is this your shortest fight ever? In any time, amateur, professional ever?
Assalamu alaikum, Maida.
Mike Tyson was upset. He'd just taken his anger out on tomato can Lou Savarese.
Tyson who scored 21 first round that Tyson threw. It was like a kick from a horse. He did get it. Might be the quickest win of Tyson's career.
A month before, 50 Cent Jackson had been popped 9 times in front of his granny's home in Queens, but survived. Then on June 10th, 2000, a guy named Hamo got shot down. Daryl Baum, the best friend that Iron Mike had dedicated the fight to. The fight that had been his fastest knockout ever. Now, there was a rumor that Iron Mike put a hit on 50 Cent over Hamo, but 50 was in no position to have a hit put on one of BK's most infamous work-for-hire guys. But wait, there's more. On February 25th, 2001, Lil Kim's entourage exchanged shots with Capone of Capone and Noriega. I mean, Capone was friends with Foxy Brown, who'd been beefing with Lil Kim since Biggie's passing. Something went on between Capone's team and Lil Kim's team, and of course, C. Gutter, don't you know my Gutter, kidnap kids, and that throw them over the bridge, pretty foul verse. C. Gutter let loose for the Hot 97. Lil Kim and Foxy Brown had been at odds about whatever since Biggie's death. Capone was friends with Foxy. So Capone and his crew, the murder squad, is outside. Lil Kim is there with C. Gutter. Whether Damion Hardy was there, he wasn't there. Now, Lil Kim stood the test of omerta, even though she was clearly at the shooting in front of Hot 97, which resulted in the death of somebody that was with Capone. She got on the witness stand and said she didn't see nothing, even though the camera showed her she was there. She served a year in federal prison for that.
21 shots. He lost 21 shots. It wasn't a situation where I just shot either. It was stupid, the situation that caused me to shoot. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not gonna never say a dude is not cut like a certain thing. 4 pounds of pressure. You know what I'm saying? But momentary lapse in judgment. If that's what comes
A dude, I know he wasn't. You know how you can feel an energy over somebody, and you know, like, you don't have to sit there and converse with him too long, but you would know what type of energy as far as being a warrior.
Let's go back to something called Lil Kim's boyfriend. The two lived together in his New Jersey mansion for some time. Again, he was sentenced to 6 life terms in federal prison, but he had been indicted in 2004, and his case dragged on for an amazing 11 years. He wasn't convicted until 2015 because he was ruled schizophrenic, unable to stand trial due to mental disability. And then after about 10 years, finally the federal prosecutors got a judge to force medication on Mr. Hardy. And once his symptoms ostensibly abated, and he was considered fit to aid in his own defense and to know what was going on, they marched a slew of his former associates, mainly hitmen, up on the stand to talk about the Cash Money Brothers organization.
You know how many cats they seen that was the best of their friends shoot the shit out of each other, like as kids growing up? They knew what it was. You have to be a little off, at least a little off, to deal with those potentials every single day. Especially for some people, they're like, it's a potential, it's maybe a random potential, something may happen. But for some, it's a reality of your because you're operating in such a way and at such a level where the threat is very real. You have to be vigilant about it every day.
So some point in the mid to late 90s, Damion World Hardy caught a short prison term, and while he was away, his brother Wise was gunned down, and he blamed a man named Ivory Peanut Davis, who I think was also from the Lafayette Gardens, who may have broken away from the CMB. And when World got out,
family, if you ain't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Hit that like button for me, fam.
He was alleged, well, this is what he was convicted of having one of his Cash Money Brothers shooters gunned down both Ivory Peanut Davis, who was shot in his Lexus and crashed the car. And I think he killed an innocent bystander when he crashed the car. And also Daryl Hamo Bomb. And Hamo Bomb was a guy who had supposedly killed Wise, having been paid by Ivory Peanut Davis.
It was as though you could be in a condition that was so different from the condition you were in 6 months before. It would seem as though 6 months before didn't exist, hadn't happened.
Now, at some point in the late 90s, not long after Notorious B.I.G. was gunned down in L.A., his former protege, Lil Kim, took up with Damion World Hardy. She lived with him for a time in his New Jersey mansion. And Hardy acted as her manager of some sort, as you get into doing Don Diva, where it's not about rappers, but rappers are the customers, rappers are buying ads, you're at the parties where the rappers are at, etc. You would have been kind of in a similar position of him, of if you were, a street guy, a black street guy in New York, you were going to be enmeshed with the rapper.
Man.
Well, that's just people trying to discredit me because they know what's got to happen.
How do you make your money? Any money? By muscling people?
No.
Okay.
I don't muscle people. I don't muscle people. Music, I used to dibble and dabble into certain things, but...
Block hugger?
No.
No, okay.
No, a block hugger. But music.
You had
And the name of the guy who testified to all this was Alan Boo Bryant, another one of his hitman, Moo. So Boo and Moo testified about these robbing these parties and intimidating Funkmaster Flex. In 2001, Lil Kim had another major problem that caused her to go to prison at Hot 97. She was going there for an interview, and Foxy Brown and her crew, which she was running around with these guys called the Murder Unit, who were later convicted of a bunch of murders, and they were with Capone from Capone and Noriega, and Lil Kim had C. Gutta from the Junior Mafia. Don't they know my Gutta kidnapped kids in the ass, throw them over the bridge? That guy was with her, and he pulled out a Mac 11, and he sprayed in front of Hot 97, and someone in Foxy Brown's entourage was hit, and Gutta did about 15 years. He was let out not too long ago. Cavario did some interviews with him, links below.
World didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't have nothing to do with it, like in terms of that happening. You know what I'm saying? That realistically, that was Gutta. It's saying that was Gutta, but cause Gutta he was on some shit. He was on his shit, you know, and he took an action that he didn't take into full consideration. What could
there have been what he did is sort of emblematic of how New York had changed it. Maybe 6-7 years before that, people say he would have got away with it, but maybe he would have got away with it, or like you wouldn't have been such a big deal. But at that point, New York, that was exactly the kind of thing they weren't having.
That was definitely not a good time for the shit like that. That's for sure. That is absolutely for sure. And again, had that happened in, say, 95, 96.
Now, Lil Kim wasn't the only celebrity connected to this case.
I'm being witness there's only one God, and Muhammad, blessings and peace be upon him, is his prophet. I dedicate this right to my brother, Damion, who died. I'll be there to see you. I love you with all my heart.
I mean, Hamo was I don't know who doesn't know this, but Hamo was a hitter. He was a hitter.
So who is this Daryl Baum that Mike Tyson shouted out after his knockout victory? His nickname on the streets of New York was Hamo, and that name may sound familiar if you are a fan of noted shooting victim Curtis Jackson, who took 9 shots from Hamo, probably, allegedly, supposedly on the orders of or paid by. I think he was convicted of that. I don't know. That's the urban myth.
When he got killed, and 50 ended up, I guess, finding out who put the work in on him, and then he retaliated in the way that his resources enabled him to retaliate, which was to make a song and demean his character, reputation, whatever that was about.
Now, in the song, Many Men,
I don't know. I guess he think 50 should have been nice to some nigga who shot him 9 times.
50 Cent had the lyric, Hamo shot me. 3 weeks later, he got shot down. Now, it's clear that I'm here for a real reason, because he got hit like I got hit, but he ain't breathing. And Iron Mike did not take too kindly to 50's false implication that he was the one that hit Hamo.
I was in Harlem one day, and I was on my way to go see my big bro Branson, and Mike Tyson was coming from seeing Branson. To see Branson was, to see the exotics, you know what I'm saying, in terms of the trees and so forth. That was he was the one that brought exotics uptown. Branson was the person you had to go see to go get some real shit that didn't make noise when you shook the bag, because there's no seed and all type of shit in it. So Branson's that guy. Mike was coming from there, and I'm sitting at the light, just past the light on 145th and St. Nick, between 145th and 146 on the uptown side of St. Nick. And I hear somebody, yo, and I look, and it's Mike. I see you, Cavalry, man. what's up with your man? I said, who? He said, your boy 50. I said, what? He said, what was that shit he said? That was some fucked up shit he said about my man Homo, man. That was my man. That was my friend, man. And I was like, oh, I said, man, we know how kid is, man. That's his arena.
Mike tripping. He know his friend shot 59 times, right? Maybe he think 50 got some kind of respect for some dude who tried to kill him.
You know, that's his weapon. That's his sword. That's what he uses to attack his enemies or so forth. And man, some fucked up shit. And make a living. You know what I mean? So he said, that's some fucked up shit. He was pretty pissed the fuck off, though.
According to the feds, Iron Mike and World Hardy put hits out on each other, or at least thought about putting hits out on each other, though in the testimony, Alan Boo Bryant, he said that his cohort Moo said that they shouldn't whack Tyson because he was a Muslim just like World, but World then responded that if Tyson could put a hit out on him and World was a Muslim, why shouldn't he put a hit out on a fellow Muslim? Of course, in the end, it was decided not to hit Tyson, and clearly Tyson, couldn't have World hit because World didn't get hit.
Cannot believe that I'm sitting here with the infamous World. This is my second time meeting with you, and you have your Quran, and you have a woman with you who is wearing, what do you call this?
Kimo.
Okay, it's fabulous. Is that Chanel? It matches the fabulousness of her boots, but clearly she is with you.
Shout out to the chat. Lois Gordon, thanks for pulling up. Appreciate your support. He said, no, the truth is that it wasn't Hamo that shot 50. Well, bro, I don't know about that part because that was the story I got from from all accounts. I'm the boss here. Hey, salute to you. Thanks for pulling up. Appreciate your support. You know I do.
In your faith.
Exactly.
And your faith is?
Islam.
The
true Islam.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one Islam.
How long?
Not the Nation of Islam and all that. The true Islam. True Islam.
And as an aside, Tyson's would-be hit, or maybe did try to pay for it, on World included a guy named Taz. And Taz was one of the reasons that Hamo got hit, in addition to probably getting World's brother. Hamo Bomb had pressed Taz to sell drugs for him instead of World Hardy.
It's kind of a necessity that you can get outside of your humanity. It's kind of, which would seem crazy to people.
Damion Hardy's lethal orders in the case of Hamo Bomb were carried out by a guy named Aaron eBay Granton, who was convicted of being a trigger man of 5 more Cash Money Brothers hits, including that of Hamo Bomb's brother, whose widow showed up at World's trial and at his sentencing with the t-shirt with her deceased husband on
it. Chant family, if you ain't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and we keeping it busting.
Hardy was born on November 3, 1974, in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, New York. He attended Queen of All Saints Elementary School in Brooklyn's Fort Greene neighborhood. Hardy reportedly acquired the nickname World from peers who compared him to professional basketball player Lloyd Bernard Free, who legally changed his name to World B. Free in 1981. His older brother, Myron, garnered the nickname Wise. Both Damion and Myron attended Bishop Laughlin Memorial High School, a Roman Catholic university preparatory school in Brooklyn. Former students of the school include former NBA All-Star and Rookie of the Year Mark Jackson, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and rapper Christopher Biggie Smalls Wallace, who attended Bishop Laughlin at the same time as Damion. In 1991, Damion and Myron formed the Cash Money Brothers drug trafficking organization. The group proceeded to wrestle control of crack cocaine sales in Lafayette Gardens housing project, away from more established drug traffickers. After seizing control, the Hardys used the housing project, comprised of approximately 2,680 residents and 7 buildings, each at least 13 stories tall, as a base of operations. In 1993, Damion was convicted on weapons charges and witness tampering, and given a sentence of 2 to 4 years in state prison. He was accused of both shooting at narcotics officers and ordering the shooting of a state witness against another CMB member. He was released from prison in April of 1996. In 1998, Damion was ejected from a Brooklyn roller skating rink by bouncer Michael Colon. In retaliation for the perceived slight, he had Colon murdered by another CMB member. On June 12, 1999, Myron was shot to death in Lafayette Gardens over drug territory by Rumal Davis, the nephew of Ivory Davis, who led the rival Davis drug trafficking organization. The shooting prompted Damion, who was in prison at the time of Myron's murder, to initiate a killing spree in retaliation for his brother's death. On June 15, CMB member Dwayne Myers murdered Jared Mackens in the vestibule of the same building in which Myron Hardy was killed, at 456 Lafayette Street. Mackens, a member of the Davis organization, was suspected of having supplied Rumal Davis with the gun used to kill Myron. Rumal fled New York and wasn't apprehended until 2001, when he was arrested in North Carolina. Following his extradition back to New York, he was convicted and sentenced to 28 years in prison. On June 10, 2000, Darrell Homo Baum, Homo, short for homicide, was shot to death after allegedly pressuring Cash Money Brothers member Edward Taz Cook to sell drugs for him. According to police, CMB member Eric Moore shot Baum once in the back of the head on the corner of Quincy Street and Marcy Avenue in Brooklyn, in front of several witnesses familiar with Baum, and was driven away by fellow CMB member Zara Sarkisian. According to Baum's younger sister, Zakia, he was lured to the corner by a female acquaintance. He was rushed to nearby Kings County Hospital, where he died 10 hours later. Baum's longtime friend, heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson, paid for his funeral and burial expenses. Baum had been released from prison 6 months earlier, on December 31, after serving 13 years, and quickly established a business relationship with Ivory Davis.
Family, remember, Homo went to jail with a 2-year sentence and stayed there for 13 years.
Just 2 weeks prior to his death, on May 25, Baum was the alleged triggerman behind the attempted murder of rapper Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, in which the future chart topper was shot 9 times. During Kenneth Supreme McGriff's 2007 federal murder and racketeering trial, prosecutors alleged that McGriff had hired Baum to kill Jackson. Jackson himself named Baum as his would-be murderer in his 2003 song, Many Men. Baum had been in the employ of his childhood friend, heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson, as a bodyguard, and according to court testimony, Tyson put a $50,000 hit out on Hardy following his friend's murder. According to testimony, Hardy also ordered that Tyson be murdered when he learned of the contract. On August 1, Davis associate James Hamilton was shot to death inside his Brooklyn seafood restaurant, Fillet of Soul, by gunmen acting on orders from Hardy, according to witness testimony. At approximately 4 a.m. on August 10, CMB member Eric eBay Moore shot Ivory Davis twice in the back while he was sitting in his Range Rover and double-parked at the now-defunct Club NV, located in New York Soho district. While fleeing the scene, Davis inadvertently hit 38-year-old award-winning filmmaker Joan Kamitz, who was crossing the street at the time. After hitting Kamitz, whose leg was torn off, the SUV jumped the curb and flipped over on its side, after crashing into a traffic pole. Kamitz died after being rushed to St. Vincent's Hospital and Medical Center, while Davis was pronounced dead at the site of the crash. Davis, who'd been convicted in July of assaulting a Brooklyn nightclub owner, had been shot twice before, most recently 6 months earlier, outside of the popular Manhattan nightclub, Tunnel. Davis' criminal history included arrests for drugs and attempted murder, and a conviction for armed robbery. In 2001, CMB enforcer Eric Moore was allegedly hired by convicted crack kingpin Kenneth Supreme McGriff to murder Troy Singleton. Singleton was shot several times in the head and back as he exited a Queens nightclub. On July 12, 2002, Hardy and CMB members James Sessoms, Isheen Campbell, and Keywayne Jones were charged with the attempted robbery and kidnapping of Ashabuddin Shakur. Police found Shakur blindfolded and bound in a Brooklyn apartment controlled by CMB and seized a loaded AK-47 assault rifle. Hardy began dating rapper Kimberly Jones in 2002. The two had known each other since the 1st grade, and Jones had previously dated Damion's brother, Myron. During the relationship, the younger Hardy allegedly physically abused Jones, to the point of the latter requiring cosmetic surgery. Jones shared a New Jersey mansion with Hardy and gifted him a Range Rover while the two were together. Ironically, the Hardys' longtime rival, Ivory Davis, appeared as Jones' love interest in the music video of a hit 1995 song by her group Junior Mafia. In September of 2003, Hardy was involved in a shootout with members of rapper Curtis 50 Cent Jackson's security team, outside of a New Jersey DoubleTree hotel. The hostilities reportedly stemmed from an incident earlier in the year whereby Hardy confronted Jackson regarding the latter's on-air insult directed at Jones during an interview at New York's Hot 97 radio station. The confrontation took place outside of the station immediately following the interview. Jones and Hardy had become engaged by the time they ended their relationship in 2004. Also in 2004, Hardy was interviewed by then radio personality Wendy Williams on her syndicated show, The Wendy Williams Experience, on a New York radio station. During the exchange, Hardy discussed his by then former relationship with Jones, and what he described as a vast conspiracy to discredit him. An 18-month joint investigation by the NYPD, FBI, U.S. Customs, and the U.S. Attorney's Office culminated in Hardy's arrest upon his arrival to JFK International Airport on August 15, 2004. He was returning from a 4-month religious pilgrimage in the Middle East, during which he was arrested twice on unrelated charges. Hardy was reportedly arrested in Morocco, and again later in Jordan, after speaking against the country's monarch. Initially, an indictment charging Hardy and 12 other CMB members with federal racketeering and narcotics trafficking was filed on July 19, 2005. Initially, Hardy was indicted on 1 count of conspiring to traffic narcotics, but a superseding indictment, filed in 2008, charged him with 26 counts, including narcotics trafficking conspiracy, racketeering conspiracy, 6 murders in aid of racketeering and illegal use of firearms. During this time, Hardy reportedly changed his name to Issa Jibril. Sessoms, who was arrested in June of 2005, prior to the July indictments, went to trial beginning in September of 2006 and was convicted the following month. He was detained at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn until August of 2011, when he was sentenced to 35 years in prison. In September, he was transported to the Maximum Security Penitentiary, Big Sandy, near Inez, Kentucky. Hardy stabbed another inmate during his detention in the Metropolitan Correctional Center, located in Manhattan, New York. CMB member Abu Bakr Rahim was tried in June of 2008 for driving the getaway vehicle, following both the August 2000 murder of James Hamilton and the July 2003 murder of Tyrone Baum. During the trial, Hardy associate-turned-government witness, Shelby Henderson, testified that Hamilton's murder may have been prompted by Edward Cook's desire to eliminate him as a direct competitor in the numbers racket. He further testified that Cook held both Baum brothers responsible for the death of his father. Henderson also contended that he was present at a party hosted by Hardy's mother to celebrate Davis' killing when he participated in a discussion about murdering Tyson, an idea to which he objected. Initially, Hardy was determined to be incompetent to stand trial due to a diagnosis of schizophrenia. However, he refused his prescribed medication. In 2013, a 3-judge appeals court panel ruled that Hardy could be forcibly medicated with antipsychotics in order to render him competent to stand trial because he'd committed numerous assaults against inmates and prison guards while incarcerated. According to prison officials, Hardy also entered a tube of toothpaste and filled it with urine for use on guards. At the time, Hardy was in detention at a federal prison hospital located in Springfield, Missouri. The death penalty had hung over the heads of both Hardy and Granton since the then Attorney General Michael Mukasey authorized it in 2007. His predecessor in the Obama administration, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, reversed that decision on Thursday, May 29, 2014, sparing the two from potential lethal injections. Hardy solicited funds both from his ex, Jones, and her longtime rival, Brooklyn rapper Inga Foxy Brown Marchand. Hardy's intention was to secure the litigating talents of high-profile criminal defense attorney, Benjamin Brafman, who'd previously defended music tycoon Sean Carter, Michael Jackson, and mobster Sammy the Bull. Brafman had previously won an acquittal for business mogul, Sean Diddy Combs, in his 2001 trial for gun and bribery. Hardy's federal drug trafficking trial began on April 1, 2015, nearly 10 years after his indictment. He was represented by David Runke, who drew from his 30 years' worth of experience in private practice, including trying 15 capital cases. Among Runkey's former clients are drug kingpin Kenneth McGriff and mobster Martin Taxeta. Runkey's wife and law partner, Jean Barrett, served as co-counsel. Owing to presiding Judge Frederick Block's order, Hardy continued to be involuntarily and heavily medicated with the antipsychotic haloperidol throughout the trial. According to testimony from Cash Money Brothers members Shelby and Alan Bryant, heavyweight boxing champ Mike Tyson and fellow Brooklynite Muhammad Noor put a $50,000 hit out on Hardy and Cook following the June 2000 murder of Tyson's childhood friend and bodyguard, Darrell Baum. Tyson even dedicated his 38-second, June 24, 2000, defeat of heavyweight contender Lou Savarese to his childhood friend Baum. Tyson was never charged for alleged murder for hire plot. They further testified that Hardy ordered Tyson's murder after learning of the contract. According to Bryant, Shelby protested the idea of killing Tyson because he was a fellow Muslim. He further testified that CMB members had gone as far as surveilling Tyson, but stopped short of carrying out the hit when he was spotted by Shelby, Cook, Raheem and fellow CMB member Abdul Aziz in the passenger seat of a parked Range Rover near the Bedford Atlantic Army Men's Shelter on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn's Crown Heights neighborhood. According to Bryant, Cook attempted to persuade Aziz, who had a reputation for carrying a shotgun in a suitcase, to kill Tyson on the spot. Bryant also testified that Hardy targeted music industry parties, where CMB members were directed to rob rappers in attendance. Dwayne Thor Meyer's testimony included a description of an argument between Hardy and the operator of a Brooklyn medical clinic that Hardy had intended to involve in an insurance fraud scheme. He said that Hardy had the man followed to Bushwick and shot in the street for mocking him during the exchange. Both Cook and Bryant agreed to cooperate with the government, following their June 2003 arrests at John F. Kennedy International Airport, in possession of 8 kilograms of cocaine, delivered from Grenada. Bryant, who was ousted from CMB after being revealed as a drug user, had personal tensions with Hardy, after the former found out that while he was incarcerated, the latter had engaged in a threesome, involving Bryant's girlfriend. Moore, who was arrested on July 18, 2005, one day prior to the filing of the initial CMB indictments, had survived being shot in the head in 2003 during an incident in which he and 2 friends were ambushed in an elevator in Coney Island, Brooklyn. On April 29, 2015, both Hardy and Moore were found guilty on all charges, which included convicted of racketeering, kidnapping, narcotics trafficking, and all 6 counts of murder. On May 11, 7 family members of the murder victims were on hand to give statements at Hardy and Moore's sentencing hearing. Both Hardy and Granton were given 6 life sentences each and continued to serve their times in prison.
As always, family, it don't take much to be nice. We all gotta live on this planet together, share each other's space, walk in each other's space. Respect is very important. I love you. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for spending your time. As always, family, 8:30 every night. Make sure you pull up. Still swinging out, family.